I texted my mom an ultrasound picture. Her response? Try being a proper daughter before trying to be a mother. I didn't reply. 1 week later, Marcus and I showed up for Christmas with a thick folder in hand. When Mom realized what it contained, her face turned ghost white. To be honest, we hadn't planned on going at all. I'd already come to terms with the fact that this would be my first Christmas without Mom's stiff speeches or my brother's constant judging eyes across the table. We had movie tickets instead. Marcus had even reserved us a table at this quiet little pizza joint. Nobody there knew us, nobody asked questions. But then there was the folder, sitting on our table like a question I'd been too scared to ask. Like a letter you keep meaning to send, but always shove back in the drawer. That's when I made up my mind. We were going. Because I've spent too many years in that house being the one who never spoke up. The version of me who just nodded along and kept quiet. I figured if I couldn't speak it, at least I could print it. So, as we pulled into the driveway, I found myself mentally rehearsing their lines. Word for word, like I'd memorized a tired old play. Same script. Same cast. Only this time, the understudies stormed the stage uninvited. My mom opened the door like we were late for opening night and had ruined the whole show. I hope you're not here to stir up drama again, she said, skipping past a simple hello. I knew she was talking about the ultrasound. That black and white image of new life. But to her, it was just more evidence that her daughter was a screw-up. Merry Christmas, Marcus said dryly. We walked inside. I kept my coat on. I wasn't about to get comfortable. The place looked like a holiday magazine spread. Twinkling lights, flickering candles, a picture-perfect table with flawless linens and plates, but not a trace of warmth. My mom's holiday decor is all image, no heart. Emotions would ruin the table setting. As usual, my stepdad was parked in his recliner, eyes on the TV. He gave Marcus a nod. Didn't bother acknowledging me. Some family rituals never die. Tyler was sprawled across the couch like he was born there. He gave me a once-over and scoffed. Wow. No shame, huh? Just walking in here with that bump after everything. I stayed quiet. Marcus tightened his grip on my hand. After what, exactly? He asked in a calm voice. Oh, come on. Tyler rolled his eyes. Like you don't know. The whole family saw how Haley behaved. It was embarrassing. Mom was practically losing it from the stress. And now she's knocked up by some random dude and still has the guts to show up. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Random guy. That's enough. Tyler, Mom cut in, voice sharp. I asked you to behave today, just for today. Tyler chuckled bitterly. She sends us an ultrasound like it's a baby shower invite. And now she's playing house in her boyfriend's basement, and we're all supposed to applaud. I walked to the table, folder still in hand. I didn't come here for support, I said. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Mom asked as she placed a salad bowl down. Another performance? Haley, this is Christmas, not your personal stage. All I ever wanted was for you to really see me, I said. Not as some broken project that didn't go how you planned. Mom stood straighter. We've always fought for you. You were difficult. Ever since your father died, you changed. We did everything right. Everything by the book. And how did you thank us? With silence. Rebellion. And now this. Pregnancy, I said, almost laughing. You make it sound like I committed a crime. Don't be dramatic, she snapped. Then she glanced at the folder. What is that anyway? Another one of your attacks. I didn't answer. I just sat down and placed the folder beside my plate. Tyler snorted again. Let me guess, another one of her bullet point complaints? Maybe a printed guide on how to talk to Haley without offending her. I don't owe you any explanations, I said. If you want to read it, go ahead. If not, don't. Simple. Silence dropped over the room like a curtain. Long enough that a dropped fork would have echoed like a gunshot. Mom stared at me like I'd just shredded her precious script mid-scene. You're only making things harder for yourself, she said suddenly. You don't get it. You're not ready for this. You can't even manage your own life, and now you're bringing a baby into it. What's worse, I said as I stood, would be crawling back under your control. I'm done asking for approval, even if you still think I should. For the first time that evening, my stepdad stood up. He looked Marcus square in the face. If you're the one who pushed her into this, you need to go. Before things get ugly. Marcus didn't flinch. I didn't push her into anything, he replied. I'm just here, standing by her. Everything else? That's her call. Mom picked up the folder. Opened it. Just for a moment. And in that single moment, everything changed. Her face went pale. She gasped. My stepdad rushed over. Tyler dropped his fork. I didn't say a word. Just watched. Still. Quiet. You didn't, Mom whispered. You already filed? Merry Christmas, I said. Marcus, let's get some fresh air. It's getting a little tight in here. They stayed behind, flipping through the pages. I stepped out into the winter night, into the backyard I always hated. And, for the first time in years, I could finally breathe. I was 7 when my dad passed. It wasn't sudden. He had been sick for a while and he knew the end was coming. He spent those last 8 months fighting his illness and making sure I'd be okay after he was gone. He was the only one who looked at me and didn't see a burden. He saw me. Even when I scribbled all over the walls with markers, he laughed. When I came home with a failing grade, he just said, "Hey, you tried." That matters. Once it became clear the treatments weren't working, he started getting things in order. He wrote a will, met with lawyers, sat down with an estate attorney to figure out how to protect me, just in case Mom had other plans. I didn't know it then, but he had set up a trust in my name. Everything he had, his savings, the house, was locked away until I turned 23. No one, not even my mother, could touch a cent of it without going through the courts. He left it all to me because deep down, he knew she wouldn't always have my back. After he died, the house didn't go quiet because we were grieving. Grief makes noise. This was something else. It was like the whole energy shifted. Mom didn't act like a mom anymore. She became a manager. And I wasn't her daughter, I was an item on her checklist. Greg showed up not long after. He moved in a few months later. Within a year, Tyler was born. And me? I stopped existing as a person. At least, that's how it felt. Mom started saying I was withdrawn. That I couldn't adjust. That I lost my grip after Dad passed. Every time I tried to express myself, through drawing, music, or writing, it was dismissed as just me looking for attention. But Tyler? Tyler was the golden child. Our little ray of sunshine. He was the one they truly saw as their child. The one who fit. When I was 15, my mom dragged me to see a family therapist. My big crime? Reading too much and not pretending everything was fine. They slapped on a vague label, something about emotional instability. That was all it took. My mom and Greg went straight to court and filed for guardianship. On paper, it was to make things easier for you. In reality, it was about keeping the reins tight. I couldn't open a bank account. Couldn't enroll in school without someone signing off. Couldn't even go on a school trip without them grilling me about it. I tried to fight it, but Mom always hit me with, "You know how you get. This is for your safety." And Greg? He barely said a word. He'd just quietly sign whatever form she handed him. Rarely spoke to me directly, but he never once went against her. They couldn't touch the trust, but one day, I overheard Mom on the phone with a man I didn't recognize. She said, "There's still a way to gain access to the assets, if we can show she's financially incompetent." Back then, I didn't know what that meant. Later, I'd wish I didn't. Mom constantly told me I had nothing. That without them, I'd fall apart. And I believed her. Because when someone calls you a burden long enough, says you're too unstable, too irresponsible for adulthood, you start to believe them, too. Meanwhile, Tyler got the world handed to him. New gadgets. Vacations. Private lessons. A shiny car when he turned 16. He used to laugh and say, "Mom told me you had another episode." He always knew he was their favorite. Never even tried to hide it. The first time I started to feel like a person again was when I moved out. I found a small apartment. I had help since I couldn't legally sign the lease alone. Eventually, I landed a job at a local library. But legally, I was still under their thumb. Every time I tried to sign a lease, submit a form, block. She's not stable, Mom would tell them. She'll hurt herself if we stop keeping watch. And then Marcus walked into my life. We met at a charity event. I was volunteering. He was there with a university law clinic that helped people without access to lawyers. We started talking. I lied at first, said I was just there for fun. He saw right through it. He asked me, "Do you ever feel like life keeps happening and no one told you you're part of it?" That stuck with me. We kept talking. He never pushed, just listened. A couple of weeks later, he invited me to grab coffee as friends. We talked for hours that day. And somewhere in the middle of that conversation, I realized I wasn't bracing myself for him to fix me. He didn't treat me like I was broken. When I spoke, he didn't flinch. He actually saw me. I'm not even sure when things changed between us. Maybe it was when he called me smart, just casually, not like he was trying to flatter me, like it was just a truth. Or maybe it was when I dozed off on his shoulder and didn't jolt awake like I always used to. It didn't feel like a whirlwind. It felt like opening a window after years of stale air. Within a month, he knew everything. My whole story. Within 2, I went through an independent psychiatric evaluation. No pressure. No family involved. Just a licensed professional, neutral and fair. The results were straightforward. I was completely competent. There was absolutely no reason to keep the guardianship going. Marcus helped me collect everything. Medical files, email threads, legal documents. He even dug up proof that years ago, my mom had contacted a lawyer friend trying to sneak access to my trust. We pieced everything together, filed the paperwork. Then we made a decision we weren't going to do this in secret. No quiet court date. No discreet documents. We were walking in on Christmas. We dropped the folder right in the middle of the table. No yelling. No threats. Just a calm, silent message. I'm not your project. I'm a human being. When I stepped out onto the porch that night, the air hit me like glass. Sharp, cold, and a little too real. I crossed my arms, not from the weather, but because my whole body was vibrating. Not from nerves. From something else. Freedom, maybe. It was like my body didn't know how to move without hitting a wall. Like it still expected bars around it. Marcus stood beside me. He didn't speak. Just looked at the house. The one that had kept me boxed in like some fancy little fish tank. It had nice windows. Pretty doors. A well-kept lawn. And not a single breath of air inside. "You sure they should be reading that alone?" he asked, voice quiet. "That's the whole point," I said. No interruptions. No speeches over mine. Let them finally sit with the truth. I leaned against the railing. That house. My dad built it with his own 2 hands. Every inch of it. He even laid the foundation himself. I remember us pressing our hands into the wet cement by the back steps. His print, solid and steady. Mine small and a little crooked. He looked at me and said, "This is your home. Even if I'm gone." And he meant it. He left it all to me, the house, the money, the trust. It was mine. Legally, at least. But the moment he passed, Mom and Greg swooped in and got that guardianship signed. They took over everything. I was technically alive, but on paper, I barely existed. The house was strangely quiet. No arguing. No stomping. No angry footsteps. Actually, it was unsettling. "She's probably reading it out loud," I said. "It's a habit of hers. She thinks if she says something louder, it'll become true." Marcus gave a small, dry laugh. Didn't say anything. A few minutes later, Tyler appeared at the door. No phone in sight. That alone was weird. He looked at us with that same face I've hated since we were kids. A blend of pity and arrogance. "You actually went through with it," he said. "You really thought I wouldn't?" I replied. He shrugged. Mom's freaking out. Says you ruined everything. Says we might lose it all. I repeated. Tyler, you've been living off my money. You drove the car I paid for. Your college was funded by my trust. And now it's we? I thought it was, like, family stuff, he mumbled. Sure, when it works for you. He left. And here's the thing, I didn't even feel mad. Not at him. Not at any of them. It's strange how quickly bitterness evaporates once you finally see things as they really are. Marcus and I walked back inside. Mom was standing by the fireplace, holding the folder like she might chuck it into the flames. But she didn't. Because deep down, she knew. That folder wasn't just paperwork. It was a grenade, and I'd already pulled the pin. Greg sat hunched on the couch, staring at the carpet. He'd always been background noise. Now, he was just furniture. This isn't real, Mom said, voice trembling but still holding on tight. It's fake. A trick. I sat back down at the table. Come on, I said. Let's not turn this into a scene. No threats, I told them calmly. The documents are already signed. The evaluation came from a licensed, independent doctor. Zero connection to either of you. The court's already got everything. Mom snapped. How did you know about the will? Her voice cracked. You weren't supposed to. Be smart enough? I said. Dad left copies in 2 places, one with his old attorney, and one locked in a bank vault I could access at 23. Even under guardianship, I could still wiggle through. Her face drained again. I knew exactly what section of the folder she'd reached. The will is crystal clear, I said. The house, the trust, all of it belongs to me. There's no clause giving a guardian legal control. Everything you did went against what Dad wanted. And now, I added, we're taking it to court. Mom exploded. We raised you. We took care of you. You were never grateful. You just shut down. You were sick. I was a grieving kid who lost her father, I said evenly. And instead of helping me through it, you turned that pain into a diagnosis. Greg finally opened his mouth. You don't get it. If the court sides with you, we'll have nowhere to live. I'm sorry, I told him. But that's on you. Not me. This is betrayal, Mom whispered, voice trembling. You're tearing this family apart. No, I replied, shaking my head slowly. I'm just walking away before it tears me apart. Marcus stepped beside me. Still didn't speak. He didn't have to. Just being there said it all. I wasn't facing this alone anymore. You won't win, my mom hissed. We'll tell the court everything. Your breakdowns. That incident when you. It's already in the file, I interrupted. The therapist's notes. The updated evaluation. We even included the forged letter you sent to the bank, Mom. The one with my fake signature. And all the proof of you trying to move the money behind my back. The silence that followed didn't feel empty, it felt heavy. Like it filled the entire room and pressed in from every direction. I walked to the fireplace. Looked at an old photo framed above it, me at 6 years old, sitting on Dad's lap. We're both smiling. Picture perfect. But I remembered that day. Mom had yelled at me for getting my dress dirty, said I was going to ruin the shot. But Dad just scooped me up and said, let's make it real. Not posed. I reached up, took the photo off the mantel, and slid it gently into my bag. That was his will, I said. His life. His legacy. And you treated it like a piggy bank. But that ends now. You're killing us, Mom said. The fight in her voice was gone. She sounded small. No, I said. I'm finally surviving. We walked out. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just the quiet sound of the front door clicking shut and the cold, clean breath of December air. It was Christmas. Still. Quiet. And for the first time in my life, I felt grown. The court process is still ahead. But the hardest part? That's done. There's no turning back now. At first, everything was quiet. That eerie calm that settles after a storm where everything seems peaceful, but the tension is still humming underneath. Marcus and I went home. He warmed up leftover lasagna. I made tea. We didn't talk much. Just ate. He gave me these quiet glances like he was proud, but didn't want to say too much. I kept looking at the folder sitting next to my laptop. It felt like it was whispering to me, "This is just the beginning." 1 day passed. Then 2. 3. No phone calls. No texts. Even Tyler went quiet. For a second, I let myself believe it was over. That maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they'd given up. But of course, they hadn't. On the 5th day, my phone rang. It was a number I recognized. Arizona area code. Haley? It was Aunt Linda. Well, your mom called me. She's a wreck. Said you threw them out on Christmas and filed a lawsuit. Is that true? I stood by the window and watched snow fall. Soft, clean, peaceful. Aunt Linda, I said gently, I'm sorry she told you that version of the story. But I'm not going to explain it. Just know, it's not the truth. She said you took everything from them, she pressed. That you and some lawyer are trying to bleed them dry. That you're unstable. Thank you, I said, cutting in. But I think it's best we end this conversation now. The next morning, a message popped up on my phone. A coworker I hadn't seen in months. Haley, I'm really sorry, but your mom messaged me on Facebook. Said you might be in danger. Are you okay? Then a text from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Greg called. Said something's off with your mental health. Said Marcus is manipulating you. Are you safe? This wasn't just pushback. It was a full-blown smear campaign. They were reaching out to everyone. Relatives, ex-friends, coworkers, people I hadn't talked to in years. Eventually, I logged into social media, and there it was. A long, public post from my mom. No names, but full of just enough detail that anyone who knew me could figure it out. When your own child, the one you gave your best years to, chooses to destroy her family over some outsider, you can't help but ask, where did I go wrong? The comments were full of sympathy. You're so strong. Praying for your daughter. She'll come back eventually. My friend's kid did the same thing after getting brainwashed by someone from TikTok. Marcus leaned over my shoulder. Guess we're officially part of a cult now, he joked. Congrats. I closed the laptop. You know what really gets me? I said. They actually believe it. Like truly, they've convinced themselves this is all happening because I'm spiraling again. Not because I'm finally okay, but because I've lost it. They've pushed that story so long, Marcus said, taking my hand. They started buying their own lies. Then it's time we disappoint them, I said. Officially. The next blow came fast. My job called. First HR. Then security. Ms. Mercer, the HR manager said carefully, we received a call from a woman identifying herself as your mother. She claimed you may be having an emotional episode. We're obligated to log it. It's just protocol, but... Protocol to do what? I asked. We're not making assumptions, she said. We're just asking you to meet with someone from our employee assistance program. It won't go on your record. It's completely informal. I hung up and laughed. Hard. Like the kind of laugh that comes when the absurdity hits you square in the chest. Then I stood up, signed the paperwork, sat with the specialist. He was kind, understanding. You're clearly stable, he told me. But we have to follow the process. I understand, I said, smiling. I've got my own process. It's called court. And then they showed up. In person. It was dinner time. Lasagna and tea again. The doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there they were. My mom and Greg. No warning. No heads up. Just standing there like this was some casual drop-in. We want to talk, Mom said, voice completely flat. She was holding something. Wrapped in paper. A gift? A trap? Who knows? You've got 2 minutes, I said, blocking the doorway. Haley, please, she said. We've been thinking. Maybe you were right about a few things. Can we sit down? Talk this through? As a family. As a family? I said, staring at her. You already had your family meeting, and it's all over Facebook. Now get off my porch, I said flatly. Greg took a step closer. You don't understand where this is headed. You've kicked off a legal war. We have connections. We have resources. We can stop this, or we can drag it out and make it worse. Marcus appeared in the doorway behind me, calm but firm. If you don't leave, he said, I'll call the police. And yes, this visit is already being recorded. They didn't move at first. But just before they turned away, my mom leaned in and whispered, You'll come to your senses. You know you can't do this alone. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrived. A new court notice. They'd filed a counterclaim. My mom was now asking the court to deem me partially incapacitated for the duration of the legal process. Claimed I was emotionally unstable. Said I was being manipulated. That I posed a risk to my unborn child. The documents were printed on fancy linen paper. Signed by a high-end attorney. Looked impressive. But had no real substance. Still, they were loud. I sat holding the notice, my hands trembling. For the first time since Christmas, I felt a flicker of fear. Not because I thought they'd win, but because they were stealing my voice again. Talking for me. And people were still listening. I'm just so tired, I whispered to Marcus. I didn't want a war. I just wanted to breathe. To live quietly. Without begging for permission. He rubbed my back gently. They don't get to speak for you anymore, he said. They're just shouting now. And we're not letting them drown you out. That's when I knew this wasn't over. But I wasn't alone. And I didn't belong to them anymore. They didn't know how to let go. But I finally knew how not to go back. A week after the counterclaim, Marcus rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He compiled everything for the court, my full case file, the independent psych evaluation, a statement from a licensed social worker, screenshots of incriminating texts, audio clips of my mother belittling me and claiming I wasn't capable. He sent it all in as a formal evidence packet. This isn't just paperwork, he said. This is your passport out. Your proof of freedom. The hearing was scheduled for late February. By then, fear wasn't what I felt anymore. I was angry and ready. Mom and Greg tried to delay the hearing. Switched attorneys. Filed motions. Played their games. But the judge wasn't having it. Even the court clerk looked like they were done with the drama. I walked into the courtroom in a plain gray dress. No makeup. No frills. I didn't want to be polished. I wanted to be real. Present. Adult. The judge, a composed woman in her 50s, kept things efficient and focused. We submitted the documents. I answered every question clearly and calmly. No shaking hands. No second guessing. My mother never made eye contact with me. Greg sat beside her with this smug little half-smile, like he was holding onto some secret ace. Their lawyer tried to spin it as a messy family misunderstanding. But the judge wasn't interested in spin. She stuck to facts. Then gave her decision. Guardianship. Terminated. Effective immediately. I was declared fully competent. Any further attempts to control my life would be considered a violation of law. I sat up straighter. Shoulders back. And, for the first time in years, I felt free. 1 week later, the court launched an investigation into how my trust had been handled while they had control. A full audit. Turns out, while I legally owned the trust, Mom and Greg had treated it like their personal piggy bank. They drained it for Tyler's tuition. Fancy family trips. House remodels. Even paid off Greg's credit card debt. Some of it was in Mom's name. Some not. But none of it was for me. The court didn't hesitate. They ruled it was financial exploitation. Greg and my mother were ordered to repay every cent they'd misused. Plus damages. Plus my legal fees. That's when the truth came out. They didn't have the money. And the house? The one I grew up in? They'd mortgaged it. Again and again. Took out loans like it was their private ATM. But legally, it still belonged to me. When guardianship was lifted, I got full ownership back. Marcus and I brought in a property expert to inspect it. It was wrecked. Structurally sound, but financially underwater. The debt on it was more than it was worth. So we made a decision. Sold it. Paid off what we could. Closed the chapter. I didn't want to live there anyway. Too many ghosts. Too much pain soaked into the walls. Letting go felt like finally breathing clean air. A few weeks later, a letter arrived. From Tyler. An actual paper letter. Like it was 1999. No apology. Just blame. You ruined this family. Everything we built. You chose a stranger over your own blood. Hope you're proud because no one sane will stay by your side now. I didn't reply. I tucked the letter into a box with the court papers. Not out of nostalgia. Just as proof of what I'd left behind. Greg and my mom ended up divorcing. He moved out not long after the ruling. I didn't go looking for updates, but word trickled in. Mom moved into a small, cheap apartment. Tried getting a job for the first time in years. She told a few distant relatives that I had betrayed her. But when the facts came out, many of them quietly stepped away. A few even reached out to say sorry. I didn't respond to most. Not because I was angry. Just because not everyone gets a second chance. Once I had full control over the inheritance, I started putting the pieces of my life back together. No revenge sprees. No blowing money. Just quiet healing. Marcus and I rented a little house just outside Portland. Nothing fancy. No marble countertops or designer lights. But it was peaceful. It was ours. I planted basil on the kitchen windowsill. Watched it grow. And every day, I felt like I could breathe a little more. I work from home now. Teach online classes. Do some consulting. Write articles now and then. And I've started writing again. For me. About survival. About freedom. About the choices we make to stay whole. Marcus jokes that one day I should publish a book. Maybe I will. On a shelf in our living room, there's a photo of me and my dad. He's holding me in the air, and I'm grinning so big it takes up my whole face. Next to it, my ultrasound. My future child. New life. With no strings. I'm still learning how to live without fear. How to silence that old voice that whispers, what if they come back? But now I know, even if they do, I'm not the same girl they tried to cage. They always said I'd fall apart without them. But the only thing that crumbled was the prison they built around me. Sometimes, I still wonder, was I too harsh? Should I have left it alone? Avoided court? Kept the peace? But I know the answer. If I hadn't stood up, they never would have learned the truth. I was never theirs to control. So tell me, did I go too far? Or did I finally go far enough? If you made it this far, hit subscribe.